Hello and welcome to another episode of the AI Relay. I am Andrew Signore.
And I am Jonathan Spanos. And this is our second episode of a podcast that we're trying to bring to the world to bridge the gap between what might seem like a super techie, high level misunderstanding. That's not for me kind of idea of AI, and bring it down to the real world, because there's real ways to incorporate this into your real work, into your real daily lives, for fun, for tasks, for basically everything. And right now, the whole scene is moving so quickly that the gap between what we as a general public understand AI to be and what AI really can do for us is widening fast. And we want to try to bridge that gap with this podcast. So this podcast is, again, for people curious about AI, people who are already using AI, but on a kind of introductory or surface level, and may not even realize that there's more to it that they could be taking advantage of. So
Let's jump in.
let's just jump right in. A little bit of a recap from the previous episode. Not that every episode is sequential, but nonetheless, we covered some basic kind of glossary terms and ideas. So if you want to go back and check out that episode, that might be useful. But we went over sort of the history of AI and the different eras that it went through and its capabilities. And we've arrived today to what we call generative AI, which is this experience that we're having of actually having a conversation with what seems like a mind that's thinking about its answer, not just some sort of canned response to a canned question, the way that a chatbot would have been, maybe 10 years ago. And it's not a Google search either, where you're specifically looking for a web page or information about some product and it's going to give you a list of options to go and read. It's actually going to tell you about the thing. And I think if anyone's out there who's been using AI already has already experienced that like, it's incredible that it seems to be talking back to you. So to keep it kind of on the ground there, something that is important to differentiate, though, is what am I talking to? What is answering me? I open a ChatGPT, and most people are probably used to ChatGPT right now, even though there are other options out there, and we're going to talk about that right now. What am I doing when I open ChatGPT on my phone and I type something into it and hit enter?
Right. So when we're talking about, ChatGPT, like ChatGPT is it's an app,
It's an
right?
app.
It's an app. It's a piece of software.
Is it
right?
an AI?
There's AI behind it, right? So the AI is essentially the brain that's providing the responses. But like the thing that you go to on your computer or like the website, that is an app, right? That is not in and of itself AI.
Just like
Uh,
any other app. I want to order food.
it's
I open up some kind
a
of app
website,
and it's a website.
right, right. But then, so then you type, some question into the message field and you hit enter, right? Again, you're in an app. That's the app. When you hit enter, the app is then sending your text over to this large language model. And that is the thing, that's like the brain that's receiving that input, right? And trying to figure out like what is the most likely output that this user is asking for, right? Like the user wants, like, and that's really that's a simplified version of what's happening, but really that's what's happening. So you've got like an app that you're interacting with, and then behind that app, the brains that is providing the response, that's your large language model. So ChatGPT being the app, that company is OpenAI, and the model that they have behind it is the thing that people are super excited to get released every few months. Right now, I think it's 5.4, GPT 5.4 just was released, right? So like that's the
Which is not
model.
ChatGPT, right? That's
Oh,
where
ChatGPT is
we're
still
kind of
the
digging
app,
into that. Right.
right? ChatGPT is the app, and then the model behind that is GPT 5.4.
Maybe we can make a real simple metaphor, like the app is like the car, the body, the chassis. The model is the engine in it. And as better engines are released to the public, it actually
Car goes
swaps the engine in the car. You're sitting
car
in the
goes
same
faster now.
car,
Right.
but it just goes faster. It's better on fuel efficiency and a number of other
Right.
things.
And
So,
OpenAI and Anthropic and Google, that's your Ford and your Volkswagen and your,
right, right.
and
And they all make cars with motors in them. And most of their, or no, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the progress that's happening so fast is their improvements in the motors and the engines of these things. And they have pretty nice cars, and they're all somewhat unique, but somewhat similar, just like every car has a steering wheel, a gas pedal, a seat, and a seatbelt.
right.
They're all going to be designed differently to some degree to fit different people in different ways.
Yeah.
But
Perfect analogy.
you get in the car and you basically never think about the motor, right? You just start it and you drive it. You're thinking about the controls of the motor.
You're not using the
So,
motor, you're using the car,
right,
right? Like, so,
right.
and that's really, and that's the tool. And I think that like ultimately when people talk about like, well, why would you choose Claude over, Chat GPT? So at the end of the day, it's a lot of the time it's really about like, well, why would you choose a Ford over a Chevrolet, right?
And I
It's like,
think that's
well,
an interesting,
you just like it better, like you drove them both, and
right,
like this one suits you more. And I think at the
on
end of the
both
day,
levels.
yeah,
The interior suits me more, but I also like the way the motor works. Like I
right.
feel better when it
Well,
drives this way,
some people like are interested in performance, right? Some people are interested in comfort, right? Some
right?
people are just interested in like driving the same car that like I've always driven before.
Hmm,
So
hmm,
there's
hmm.
lots of different reasons why one might like choose to use Claude over ChatGPT, or why one might want Gemini. But at the end of the day, it's like really it comes down to um taste. Why does somebody drive a Tesla over a Mercedes? Uh
Interestingly, though, with this, with AI, differently than a car, like, I mean, people are into cars and they know what motor is under the hood and they might make decisions based on that. But this is actually even more accessible to if we can wrap our heads around the two differences of the car and the motor, because we can actually experience the difference of the motor in the way that you would experience the interior of a car. Like that's your tangible thing in a car. But here, the tangible thing is the interface, the application, but the response is what we're actually interacting with and feeling. And that's coming from the motor, from the model. So understanding those two separate things, yes, but then also understanding that you're going to have a different kind of actual relationship with different kinds of models, whether it's an OpenAI model, an Anthropic model, a Google model. So let's try to differentiate like why and how, generally speaking, we don't need to get into the details of
right.
the training regimens and
Sure.
the data centers, but how as a user should I start trying to understand the differences between my experience with ChatGPT, my experience with Claude, my experience with Gemini?
Well, I think some of it's going to come down to straight functionality, right? Some of these models do stuff the other models don't, right? Like you're going to go into you might be someone who's used to using ChatGPT, and that's like what we call like a multimodal model, meaning
What
that
is
like
that?
it means that like it can provide responses back in both text and in like images, right? So like or in video in some cases. So you've got models that are like have capabilities and where so you sort of have that one-stop shop if you want to create an image, or you want to do research or whatever. you know Products like ChatGPT and Gemini offer that functionality. If you wanted to do something similar like in Claude, well, you're kind of out of luck, right? There's no image generation in Claude. So
Mm, okay, so there's actual specific
specific,
abilities that may or
right?
may not be lacking.
And then one might
Um,
ask, like, why would I use something like Claude if like it doesn't do something as that
right.
Gemini and
Why don't I just only use ChatGPT?
because Claude does things special that only Claude does, or what it
Or does
does.
it better?
It's an incredible tool set, right? And this is where we're talking about like what are the tools that it offers are like in some cases above and beyond the importance of like how good is a model performing on a certain benchmark or a test, you know?
Okay, so s- the benchmark tests are interesting, and I think once people get a little bit accustomed to using a couple of different models, which to speak directly out there, like the best way to articulate what we're trying to articulate is to just go and use the different models. Even the even just taking a simple question and asking three different models the same exact question, you will immediately see differences in almost personality or the way they handle the question that you're asking.
The other thing that's cool is that it's all free right now.
Right.
And while it's definitely not free. Like we're talking like AI is like a insanely expensive endeavor for like a lab or a company to start developing. For consumers right now, it's awesome because they are giving away something that is like super expensive for nothing. Like you can pretty much go and try most features of like the latest and greatest models for nothing or it's very inexpensive, right?
Yeah, or maybe like an ad popped up and you barely noticed it, and because of course nothing is free. Nothing just comes out of the ether from
Well,
nothing.
free.
But
What's
right now, free to the user, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But free to us at the moment, and not only is it awesome that they're giving us ability for us to break the ice and trying to get our feet wet with this new technology, but it's pretty arguably like the most advanced technology humanity has ever
Yeah.
created. So
And it
it's
right
not
now is
just like, oh
free.
my God, there's a great new tool for this specific industry and I might be able to play with it. No, no, no,
Right.
no. This really is a paradigm shifting, civilizational shifting thing. That sounds like loaded, huge words. I don't think I'm underestimating it though, and I don't think that you think that we're
No, I think
underestimating
it's
it
like
either.
electricity, you know what I mean?
Yes, it's
And
really
where it's
that big of a thing where we'll look back in only a few years from now and wonder how the world was like before a common usage of AI got folded into our everyday
it'll
lives and
it'll
work.
be pre and post
Right,
AI.
right,
Society
right.
will
And
100% be
the cotton
pre
gin and the steam engine
yeah.
level
I mean,
things.
we're I think also, just as an aside, I think in our kind of age bracket, like, Gen X is a real unique spot to be in, having, witnessed the dawn of, like, the personal computer, and then witnessing the dawn of the internet, and then also the dawn of the artificial intelligence age, that's
It's
insane.
true. It's
Right?
true.
We remember what it was like before all of it, and yet, like, and we've also been like practitioners in all of it.
hmm
Um,
Yeah,
so
and in the way that the personal computer eventually every single house has more than one at this point. I remember days when houses didn't have any. The internet, we all now use the internet. So what I'm getting at is that whether you knew it was happening or not, we folded all these technologies into our lives, into our everyday lives for work, play, regular around the house tasks. AI is going to do that. And now is the time to get in on it early so that when it's ubiquitous, you're comfortable in that world. Even if you're never going to write your own application, you're never going to, really nerd out and become a tech person. You don't need to do that. But
no,
the wave is coming.
I think that most people recognize that, like, AI is likely going to affect their workplace in some way. I don't know that, like, they understand how or, like,
Right.
when or, like, or,
Yeah.
if this age is upon us, or it's like, is this something that we'll see in, like, 5 to 7 years? Now, maybe it will be competing against an AI company. I think it's gonna happen a lot faster than a lot of people think.
It
Um,
will. It will. And I think part of an interesting moment that we are here in history is that I don't think even the companies that are making these models and applications know what kind of effect it's going to have on people's work and lives. And the democratization that you mentioned in the last episode, and combining that with the free ability to use it at this moment with these free tiers, we are the society, are the laboratory of how we're going to conclude how this is going to be implemented across so many different parts of our lives. So we actually have the opportunity right now as modern people uh, to craft and shape the way that this is going to be part of our lives. I think that's a little different than the internet and like the telephone.
Well, I
So
don't think
that
it was
kind of wraps
ever
to
like in a lot of cases, the internet didn't replace it. I mean, it did in some cases, but
it replaced things, different
it
things. But
augmented what you did, right?
yes,
It
right.
changed it changed it, and like certainly there's a lot less travel agents around today than there were,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
1985.
yeah.
But and I have heard the argument about AI and that during the Industrial Revolution, when people transition from like agricultural economies to a
To
manufacturing
factory
economy,
settings. Yeah.
right? People transition from working in farms to working in factories, and so there has been change, and we have adapted to change in the past. What makes AI interesting is that like there really aren't a lot of areas where we can identify that AI isn't going to affect that industry that we could like run to the way that we could like when people ran from agriculture to manufacturing, and started working in factories. Like I don't know that there is this other place where like because AI is going to affect this industry, we can turn and pivot and start working in this industry.
Because
I kind of see
AI
it
is going to be
sort of
there already.
ubiquitous everywhere, and
Right.
that's a challenge. But it is what it is, though. I think
So
like
that brings so let's dive in a little bit to what we want to try to stay focused on this episode is what are the different kinds of models and how can we be using AI in a more everyday way, but beyond a simple question response search engine type of thing. So we've
I
mentioned that there are different kinds of models right now out there and that they have different, let's just say they have different strengths and weaknesses. And we're not really
and I
going
would
to
say it
make
doesn't
an,
matter right now
yes, that's what
which
I'm
one
saying.
you choose, right?
Right.
Whether it's Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT. The one might outscore the other one in a humanities test by like 4 points, but like honestly, at this point, they're all scoring better than I ever would. So, really, what are we talking about? Like, if it's important to you that you're using the best model for complex math, yeah, maybe you want to reference, a benchmark to see like what is performing
Yeah.
good. But
I mean,
I think for general AI use, pick one. It doesn't matter. I think what's more important is as a becoming a practitioner of AI and like
mm.
knowing what the models are capable of is when people, well, I think that like aha moment starts to happen for people where they're like, they go beyond using an AI like a search engine and start using AI as like a tool to solve like practical problems,
So let's talk
whether
about
it's
that.
in
Like,
business or
it's really pretty easy, I think, when we think of anything that has to do with tech and technology, to think, well, it's for tech people to use that stuff, right? Or
yeah.
for giant corporations to use this advanced technology, right? Let's say there's a like a an app developer who's doing a lot of coding, then this is probably a great tool for them. But what do I need to use it for? There's an insurance company that needs to do all sorts of risk analysis with massive data sets. What do I need to use this for? But there's definitely ways to be involving this in our daily lives without having to have these huge, almost edge case examples. So where would a where would a teacher bring this into their lives without it being some advanced super technology and feeling like they're over their head? How is it useful for someone like, let's say, a teacher, which is a pretty decent middle of the road example of someone in our
I
society?
mean, I think that's it's probably like a use case where there's tons of places where teachers could be using AI. Like if you think about like what are teachers primarily spending their time on, it's like outside of teaching the class, it's probably in the creation of lesson plans and looking at student data, right? And those are like, two areas where, you could leverage AI to help analyze that, or to help create lesson plans, right? That you've got to create creative lesson plans as a teacher that, that meet the curriculum requirements. And I think one challenge for a teacher, right, in that, something that they all know that they, could do to improve outcomes for their students would be, personalizing lesson plans to a student's particular needs. Now, I I think lots of teachers, or most teachers, would agree that would be amazing to have for every student. But the reality is that, like, a teacher doesn't have the capacity to create individual personalized plans for each and every student. But I think that, if a teacher were to leverage AI, that's something that could be achieved, like, real easily, and not just um, in the creating of that lesson plan, but also in analyzing that student data to recognize, what are the areas that this student is struggling with.
Okay,
So
so
that
let's try to bridge that use case gap, because that's a
Sure.
particular and a fantastic. I mean, education could be revolutionized by. We always talk about there's too many pupils per teacher, right? This could be like basically a one-on-one tutor for every single student. But let's put ourselves in a situation where I'm using ChatGPT to ask pretty basic questions throughout the day. There's a gap there of like to what you just said. Like, what do without going into like a long dissertation, but like,
Right.
how would a teacher actually, uh, what would it write
Okay.
into the
A
prompt?
teacher today that it's using, like, that hasn't built necessarily a system around their, you know this idea of, like, analyzing student data or whatever, right? But a teacher has created a lesson plan, and they know that they have one student in particular that is struggling, maybe struggling with reading. They don't struggle with history, and this lesson's around history, but they know that this student struggles with reading, and is, like, in a classroom where you're reading to learn. This would hinder your ability to learn the history plan. So, potentially a teacher could, simplify the language used in the lesson, so that, the child would, or the student would, be able to read a simplified version of this history, and still retain the important facts that they need to pass the test. Right. So, you could just simply copy the text that is supposed to be read for the classroom, and tell the AI to rewrite this text. If, let's say, you're in fifth grade and the student's reading at a third grade level, and maybe you want to challenge that student, right? But the fifth grade level is too
Too
demanding.
much. Yeah.
So you say, like, let's rewrite this at a fourth grade level, so that my third grade read is still challenged, but it's not too far beyond him, so that he's not going to be able to
So
progress.
that's a
Like, this is
great
just an
icebreaker
example.
right there. That's a great icebreaker because that could be done on a free tier with a simple copy paste and a brief description of what you're looking for, and you will get a third grade level reading plan
Sure.
with just that. So we don't have to go even further into how to create sort of workflows and roles that the
Right.
ChatGPT model is going to take on, and knowing the context of the student. All of what I just said is legit and would make this an even more enriched
Right.
lesson
Once you
plan
start going
for the
down that
student.
road, and I think the more,
You
like,
start
if you did
seeing it.
this 4 times, you'd be like, "Oh, man, it'd be awesome if it could, like, remember
Right,
all of," or if I could do this for 30 students rather than the
right.
one,
Or
and
if
that's
I
when you
if I
start
say
thinking
to
about
it would
this.
be awesome if I could say, "Hey, we're grading Andrew's, essay today. I
Right.
need an analysis of the comprehension from the work plan, from the lesson plan to the thing," and have it be like, "Oh, I know Andrew. I know everything, all
Right.
of the tests that he's taken and all the essays he's written." So that is completely capable right now, but I don't want to go that far because I want to be talking right now to the people who are using ChatGPT or any model,
Right.
um, and aren't really seeing the door that kicks open beyond the search engine.
Right.
So I think that was a great simple example. And if you're a teacher out there, you could try it. Just take one day's lesson plan And just as an experiment, not even for real use, just take the lesson plan and say, what if this lesson plan was for, advanced students? What if this lesson plan was for, um, I don't know, special cases? I don't know what the right words are to use, but nonetheless, you'd see that it would pump it out within seconds. And of course, that's not the final product. The human is always the end of the line. You get to read it, you get to review it, and do what you want with it. Just because the AI can produce these extremely intelligent responses doesn't mean we're immediately enslaved to having to do what the AI said. Um, so that's some interesting use case from like the teacher perspective. And I wonder if I can think of, or if you can think of like even like a daily task. Like we're all home economics experts, whether we don't even use that word anymore. That dates my generation. But you live in an apartment, you own a house, whatever it is. There's things that go on. You're paying bills. You got to remember to go to the grocery store. How is ChatGPT or a Claude
Here's
or a Gemini more powerful than simply telling Alexa, write this down on my grocery list?
so like here's like there's there's a million apps that have been built like through the years that have like very niche, very specific use cases. Like one that I like that I think about all the time is like, and it's because it's awesome, right? It's this app that like goes through your bank statements and identifies like unused subscriptions or things that like maybe you signed up for a while ago and it was free for a year and starts auto billing you,
And of
right?
course, the app costs something, right? To save money, you got to pay a little bit of money with those
Right,
kind
and,
of
like, that
apps.
app costs maybe that app costs, like, $5 or whatever, and, like, $5, it becomes one of those subscriptions that you're paying.
Right. It
Um,
replaces its own self. Yeah.
these are things that are at real risk, like, software as a service in general is like a real is at risk, right? Because this is a sort of thing where you used to say to yourself, like, "Oh, I wish there was an app for that." And I think as people get more and more comfortable with using AI and understanding the capabilities of AI, rather than say, like, right now we're using AI, and often lots of people are like, oh, I used to search Google for that. And now instead of searching Google, I just ask AI and I get the answer. And
Mhm.
like, it's a perfect reference because I think that the future is going to be more around. We used to have things that we would go and say, gee, I wonder if there's an app for that. And you'd go and you'd look for the app the same way that we would Google before.
Mhm.
And now we're going to be doing things like rather than looking to see if there's an app for that, you're going to be like, I wonder if my AI can do that. Like, let
Right.
me take my bank statement from the last 3 months, just like have my AI identify subscriptions that I may or may not be using. Uh, you know, well, like that's what the app did. Um,
That's
now
right.
your AI can do that job in 30 seconds.
Less.
You can identify those things, cancel the subscriptions, and you save the $5 and the trouble of going and finding that app or whatever. Like that's just like
Yep.
one example, but it's everywhere, right? And like the same way that we're no longer using Google in that way, this is what is like going to be happening with software as a service or these web apps where we're going to be
Mhm.
like, yeah, I could buy the free tier of that or the premium tier of that app, or I think I could probably just tell my AI here to do that for
To
me.
do it. And it
Right.
doesn't, that doesn't, what you're saying too isn't, oh, I can go and build my own app, although I could.
Right.
You don't even need to. The
No.
models are powerful enough where you could just
Yes.
literally say whatever that app was designed to do, you could
Right.
just say, here are these documents. Could you please analyze them for me? Like you
Right.
said, can you please identify which of these in my bank statement are subscriptions or
Right.
whatever?
Or whatever. Or
What
like,
what did I spend on restaurants? Boom. It'll just give it to you, and that's so surface level because that as you get used to using it in that kind of way, you start seeing again what you said earlier, like how can I get it to kind of remember, one statement to the next statement to the next statement? How can I get it to remember the student or the students that I'm referring to? How can I get it to remember the kinds of things that I buy at the grocery store and so on and so forth? And so that's going to be the fun part, I think, of getting into the meat of this podcast as we go along, is getting past this gate that I'm trying to get us through, which is you've never used it before, or you're just using it as a kind of a kind of search engine. Um, and so you don't need to go out and start paying 20 bucks or $100 a month for this technology. They're offering it for free to the consumer side. Um, is usually, or lots of times, if something's free, you're a little red flag raises, like, why are you giving this to me for free? It's probably a piece of junk, right? Why should people stick with the free tier for now at this level that we're talking about, of just kind of breaking the ice or dipping your toe in the water, and feel that they're getting a quality experience, and it's not just some showroom floor model that's kind of empty and
Well, I
false?
we are in like kind of in the dawn of this new AI era. And part of that is, people are, companies are scrambling and wanting market share and, wanting to kind of dominate in the race. And consumers are are the benefactor to that, right? Right now, they are giving away free access to all their models, and it's limited. Like there's a limit to how much you could use a free tier of any given model.
There are limits. We'll
Yeah.
have to talk about what those limits are and how they
Well,
apply, but
I think
go
last
on.
time we did talk about tokens, the idea that tokens being like um, it's the gasoline
The
for,
gasoline
for the engine.
for the
Uh,
motor. So we used the car and motor metaphor earlier. That's perfect. So
right.
the motor runs on something, and in the AI world, we call them tokens.
Yeah, and like, and all these companies they're giving away free gasoline to use in their
Right,
cars. They
right.
want you to try it.
But not
Uh,
unlimited gasoline. They're
it's
giving
not
away,
unlimited, and
like, we'll
the
give you
truth
this
is
little pail, right? There's a little gas tank, and you can use it, and you can use it to your heart's
they're
content, but
all
it's going to
losing
run
money.
out.
They're all losing money on these free tiers. It
Right,
won't last forever,
right,
right? Like free access to top tier models it is not a sustainable business model, but
right.
it's happening right now. So take advantage of this,
Hmm.
right? Open up a free account on all of them.
On all of them.
Gemini, Claude,
Perplexity,
ChatGPT,
ChatGPT.
Perplexity, Grok on XAI. It's incredible.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And they all have a level that allows you to sample the goods. And you might like the responses that you get one out of one more than the other. Like I know that for like conversational chatting, with an AI, I prefer Grok.
Mhm.
For tools and research, and if I'm like developing like a piece of software, or I'm trying to develop a product, I really like Claude. If I'm when I'm coding, I like Claude. So there's access to all these models. You'll find which ones you like the best. There is no one model that's just the best right now. It's just
No, they
what
all
do you
have
prefer?
strengths and weaknesses. They all have strengths and weaknesses that are explained by the way that they're trained, which is a different conversation, but we did touch on the previous episode, w while we were talking also about the tokens and the context. And the context is really, I think, the big difference between the free and the paid, and it makes a huge difference in the kind of quality of outcomes and the length of a conversation that you can have and keep expecting to have quality responses, right? So the free tier is going to be powerful, but if you sit for like an hour talking to a free tier, after like only 20 minutes, you're going to be like, this thing is crazy. It's saying weird things and it doesn't understand what I'm talking about anymore. Am I right about that?
I mean, that can happen. It doesn't like I wouldn't say that like that is going to happen. It really depends on the complexity of like the conversation, that can happen, right? There's such a thing. It's like there's a finite memory within a model's capability, right? So like how many tokens or how many words can fit in a model's memory before it needs to be like, all right, like wipe it all away. Let's just
Let's
condense
start
this
again.
into a couple sentences. we'll save that, and then we'll toss away the rest, and now I've got all my memory back.
Right. And
These
that's the context window that we
Yeah,
described in the previous episode. To recap, the context window is not a window I'm looking through, but it's actually a length of time that's filling up with information, which is your conversation. Every
it's a
question,
bucket.
every response, every question, every response. It's like a bucket that's filling and filling and filling and filling. And the more filled it gets, the more difficult it is for the model to stay on track and not drift. And so the companies create a certain limitation to that. And like you just said, once it starts getting pretty full, it automatically will summarize everything, compact it into a kind of little summary, and then that sort of drains the bucket. And now you can keep going. But now it doesn't have a word for word memory of what you were talking about. It's going to stay pretty much on track, but you can't expect it to know exactly you were talking about, before the compaction, which is the word that we're using today, happens. And what I'm trying to drill down to is that the free tiers are extremely powerful and where everyone should be going right now because they're free. And as we get used to using these, you'll see that there is something going on that has to do with the context window. And I think the easiest way to differentiate a free tier or a paid tier is that length of that context window. If you're paying for it, you're buying way more context. So you're going to get more sort of time of focus out of the model.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, like, we can get into, you know, um, context windows and memory and stuff, but, I mean, I think, like, for a beginner, I think what's really the most important takeaway is to start understanding like what a model's capabilities are, because I don't think you start getting ideas about what you can do with something, and it's like, until you realize like what it's capable of doing, right? So like what
That's
about
right.
what like as you like the more you use it, the more you realize it's capable of the things
That's
it's
right.
capable of,
Getting your hands on this is the most important thing to take away from any podcast, any
and it's free.
explainer, anything.
So it's
It's
like if you're
free.
curious,
Get your hands
you
on
have
it.
no excuse. It's free and it's out there, and like you have a Google account. You can log in to any of these models with your Google account. You already have an account. Just click on the little G, log in with Google, and you'll authenticate in
Right. That's
and
right.
start using
And you
all of
got
it.
to try to think a little bit outside the box, though. It's natural to approach it, I think, as a kind of super search engine. Try to play with it and challenge it. Go beyond what you would ask a Google search. Challenge it with different kind of broader tasks or bigger topics, or if you're trying to organize something, like you said with your bank statements.
Have it do work for you, like the work that you hate.
Yeah.
There's something that you do that you hate. Whether it's
Hmm.
balancing your checkbook or doing your home budget, or it's planning your shopping list, or if you're a business owner, maybe it's doing scheduling or timesheets or billing or whatever it is. There is something that you hate to do that AI can do for you, and
That's right.
start exploring the different options and different ways AI might be able to like lessen that load, because like
That's
I,
right.
I think at the end of the day, it is its usefulness that's it's the most groundbreaking, right?
Right. For the
So
everyday
start
use of
exploring
for
how
us.
it can be useful to you. Everybody has different things and that they're working on, whether it's like, your weekend chore list at home, or your
Right.
stuff you're doing at the office. Just identify a problem and start messing around with AI and start looking at ways
That's
to
beautiful
solve
because like to really get fluent with this, it's learning how to identify a problem and how to articulate it, because we as humans just do things so naturally and fluidly that we don't realize that we know what the problem is and we're kind of solving it for ourselves.
it.
And we
Right.
kind of have to externalize ourselves here. Like maybe a good example or not, but it just passed through my head to try to give some people a grounded example. If you're going to be hosting Thanksgiving dinner and you know you're going to have 25 people and you need to put together the dinner, you're going to make a grocery list, of course, but you're going to be computing how much of each thing you're going to need to buy to have enough food for 25 people. This is kind of maybe a silly example, but you could literally just make the grocery list of items give it to ChatGPT and say, I'm hosting Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to have 25 people. Please tell me how much of each of these things I need to buy. And it will do all that math for you. And actually, you've offloaded like some computation from your own mind. And that's not search engine, right? Maybe that no one will ever do what I just said, but I'm trying to use it as an
Yeah.
example of the
Or
kind
like, I
of
mean,
capability that it has. It can extrapolate and infer and actually give you useful output.
you could, for example, just provide like the recipes that you are going to be making for Thanksgiving and say, yeah, these
Hmm,
are recipes for 6. I'm having
I
16,
need it for 25, right?
right?
Scale it for me.
Scale me the recipes and provide me a shopping list that will make for the amount that I'm
Right.
cooking for, right?
I think that actually might explain it to some degree. I'd love to hear down in the comments if people think that that's a ridiculous example or if it's actually hitting home, because that's the capability I think that we're trying to scratch here and say, like, it's not just, hey, what is the recipe? It's, please tell me how much of all of this I need and scale it up for me. And like, that's a completely different way of using the internet, let's say. This isn't the internet, right? That the models aren't the internet. The models can use the internet, they can use their own memory, they can use the documents or information that you give to their context, and they actually will infer. It's not just an apples to apples response. You give it context, it will think and infer what you're asking it and give you the answer that it is pretty sure is the likely answer you're hoping to get. That's the big leap beyond I searched for a recipe for Thanksgiving dinner.
Right. I think like it's not, I mean, it is magic to a certain extent. Like I don't want to say it's not magic because like I mean there are things about models that even the researchers don't understand why they work,
Yeah.
right? But
Right.
one
Yeah.
one thing is true, right? That power comes from asking good questions, knowing how to like and I think asking good questions also comes from knowing that what the models are capable of, right?
What
You
kind
might
of questions are good questions for which models?
Well, I think just bringing back to like the recipe question, like you might think like, oh, I've got to, in order for the AI, I should like go to my recipes, list out, let me type out all the ingredients, and then I can put the ingredients into Chat GPT. You might do that 2 or 3 times before you realize it's like, oh, I could just drop the link into
Right.
the chat. Like, I don't actually have to, like, tell it, or I don't need to copy and paste the recipe into the chatbot. I can just be like, "Here's this recipe, here's the appetizer, here's the dessert that I'm making. These are all recipes for 8 people. I'm having 20. Give me like, scale these recipes for 20 and provide me a shopping list." Like, you might do it the long way 2 or 3 times before you
Mhm.
realize, like, "Oh, man, like, I could just this is so much easier. I should just drop in the link."
Right.
And then
Before
it's
you
like
realize,
and before it's like, well, before I was just having it recalculate the recipe, I should also have it recalculate the shopping list too. Like, let me do
right.
that step as well. And then before you know it, you're like, find me find me 5 recipes. I'm going to choose one. Then I'm going to tell you how many people it's for, and you're going to create me a shopping list. And that's just how you do it,
That's right.
like,
That's right.
and that,
You
so,
realize that at the beginning, you're playing the expediter between different pieces of
right.
information, and you start seeing over time that these can collapse into just one maneuver. Where instead of you opening the website to find the recipe to copy paste the recipe in ChatGPT, as you're saying, you can skip that and collapse it all and just say, ChatGPT, go look on this website for this recipe that I want to serve for Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to have 25 people. Give me the whole
Now,
breakdown.
like, to take it a step further, like when we start talking about like, well, why would I use one over the other? Like, why would I use, you know, Claude has something called co-work, right? Co-work would give you the ability to say, ChatGPT, or Claude, I do my shopping for the week on Sunday, right? On Saturday, I want you to find me 6 dinner recipes or find me 12
Mhm.
so that I can choose 6 on Saturday that we're going to have for the following week. And then I'm going to select based on my recipe selections, then curate me a shopping list for my Sunday morning shopping so I can buy the food and then plan based on how long it takes to make each recipe. Here's how much time I have on each night. Plan out when I'm going to be making the thing based on my availability. So like boom, boom. And so the more you learn about its capabilities, the more you start thinking yourself like, all right, like I can actually think about this just for 10 minutes, and something that I agonize over all week long is taken care of.
Right. I think you're
Right.
touching,
So
and you said earlier, like it's not magic. It's not magic, obviously, but it's not magic in the sense that it's only going to give you like the quality of outcomes are going to depend on the quality of inputs. And as you're describing, as you go through it, you just described an incredibly rich layer of understanding of what these models can do. As you go through it, you understand that it's your input that's causing the output. So the more context, like you could say, hey, give me a recipe. Boom, it'll give you a recipe. You could say, give me 12 recipes to choose from 6. It'll give you that. If you say, this is my weekly work schedule, I'm working late on Tuesday and Thursday, give me, 12 options and I'm going to choose 6, and then line it up with my schedule, which sounded like a mouthful, but it's really just a few sentences. It will tell you, these are your options. These are your Tuesday and Thursday best options because you're going to have limited time and these are going to be really good meals at a quicker pace. So as we interact and understand our articulation and our clarity of thought, we start understanding how much more we can layer on in terms
right.
of context to get even more, to even get more rich and accurate, desirable responses and outcomes. I think that's almost a training wheel level of getting really quality experiences is, and we touched on this, and I'm going to always keep coming back from this. This is one of the first things I thought about that struck me when I started digging into using these is the irony in my mind that we are circling all the way back to, do you know how to organize your thoughts, think critically, and verbally articulate them? Not just stay in your own mind, but you have
Right.
to talk to somebody outside of your mind. How clearly can you speak your thoughts so that it's ingestible and comprehensible to this other person or model? Doesn't matter. It's funny that like it's our most important, I say our, like the human animal. It's our most important advancement, really, in a way, is our ability to clearly communicate. Fire was important, the steam engine,
Yeah.
AI, these are all incredible. But like without
Yeah.
our incredible evolutionary ability to communicate with each other,
Right.
we would be nowhere. And now that's the most important cornerstone of this technology. It's
It is.
hilarious to me that it's
It
like
is. Well, at
a
the
full
same time,
circle.
too, though, I think that like there are certain generations that are at advantaged, right? Because and just like you ever meet someone who is just, I mean, I know that you have, but you're someone who's good at like just finding what they're looking for on the internet. Some people are just better
Yeah.
at it than
Yeah.
others, right?
Yeah.
And it's
But that
it,
was a
you know,
language in and of itself. Google
right.
search was a skill in and of itself after a while.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember Boolean searches, right? So we're like, you would like use a Boolean search to get better search results, right? So, and it was just a, format and
A
syntax that you
different
use,
mathematical thing. Yeah.
to, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think that, people will learn to use AI and, to, query the AI in the same way they learned to search Google and got better at
Yes.
searching Google, right? Just to be like, hey, the best way to
Yes.
search Google is? It's like just ask it the question. Where should I, where should I go to get my tire repaired? I'm in Boonton, New Jersey.
Yes.
It's going to tell you where you should get your tire repaired, right? I mean, it's going to give
That
you.
technology progressed to the point where you could do that. I remember the early days of Google search where it really turned into kind of a niche skill, like how to query Google search just the right way to get the answers. Because it wasn't natural language necessarily. It was
No, it
like
wasn't right. Like
keywords.
that was
It
where it
was
was like
keywords and how am I going to order the keywords?
using quotes. When do I use
Right.
quotes? Right,
Right. So
quotes.
that was annoying because you did have to learn something new. This is all of the barriers are taken down because it's
If
just
you
be
know
a
what the
human being.
capabilities of the model is, right? Because it's like if you didn't know the model could
Well,
do that,
there,
I'm
there
not going to ask it to do that, and that's
no,
where
there
it.
are there are restrictions, of course, and parameters. But what I mean to say is, on our end of the equation,
Right.
you don't have to learn a new piece of software. You don't have to learn a new piece of language. You just
For
have
the
to
most part,
speak
100%.
clearly. And I think that's like the underpinning lesson
Yeah.
for AI 101.
I think too that like, discovery, right? It's like you're going to go, you will discover that Claude doesn't make images the first time you go and be like, hey, Claude, make me an image that, of,
Yeah, if you're
Mickey Mouse on
even
a rocket
doing that
ship.
right now. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, XAI can do it. Chat GPT can do it. ChatGPT can do it. You might expect Claude to be able to do it until you try, and then
And
it
it doesn't.
and it doesn't, and you're like, oh, look at
But
that.
to,
This is
even on
why.
the
This is maybe why someone.
even on the chat, let's say a chat GPT that can generate an image, which it can,
Mhm.
the same thing applies. If you have a pretty vague and not very well thought out description of what the image you want, it's not going to be the thing you want. The better you become at articulating and really breaking down your thoughts into sections the way we were supposed to be taught when we were
Yeah,
kids,
yes, I think
you're
that's
going to
true
get a better outcome
out of the
faster,
gate
even in the
for
image.
sure. But then I think there's also too something to be said for like the best way to query the model, because that changes as the models improve. Like the best way to get to query it is maybe different than it was 6 months ago. Um,
Yes. Still
that
an articulation issue, though. If
not
you were
always.
vague,
Dude,
if you were
sometimes the
vague,
best way to to prompt your model is to take your prompt and convert it into JSON. Now, like that's getting super nerdy. We don't need to talk about like what is JSON.
that's not what I mean.
But
But
but what I mean is that like the best way to query a model, like it starts with articulation, and then as you progress, you might realize like actually chatting with the model, just chatting, period,
yes,
is the wrong way to provide context to the model,
yeah.
right? And like I'm going to provide context in a different way, and that's where it's like prompting matters until it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
And even with prompting, models are better at you than at making a good prompt. So
Yes.
if you're like, I need to come up with a great prompt for Nano Banana to do like a photorealistic, look like a studio model shoot, right?
Hmm.
You could try through trial and error and articulation to like write out a great prompt.
Yes.
Or you could just tell Claude to be like, hey, I need to create a prompt for Nano Banana, research how like the best results, what are the types of prompts people are using to get the best results, and then write me a prompt that's going to create a studio.
There are two things at play here that we're both touching on that actually go together because, and I think we'll hold it off on like the feeding AI to AI. We'll hold that off for another episode. But what you're touching on are like techniques that can get better outcomes. And I think we definitely need to talk about those kinds of techniques, like getting an AI to write the prompt for you, for example. But it all still roots at how you articulated the thing in the first place. So the AI can write a great prompt for you, but only based on what it is that you asked it to write a prompt
Right.
for. So both
So
of them go hand in hand here.
I'll give you like an example of what I'm talking about, right? Like, recently I took part in a hackathon for my company, which is just an event where you go down and like they present you a use case, and your different teams go and they, you do the
You
thing,
have some
like
kind of challenge, some kind
you
of
create
puzzle
the
to
app, right?
solve or something, right?
And we had like a great result. Our team, me and my partner, ended up winning the hackathon, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And the response from like senior management was like, "Show me the prompt, right? Like,
Right.
show me the prompt that you used."
Like it's
And
some
like,
magic spell.
right, to be like, well, because they're like, hey, they knew that we were, vibe coding, so to speak. Like, we're using AI coding agents to create the thing, whereas we're competing against like traditional developers that weren't.
Mhm.
So after the whole thing, we gave our presentation. We showed them the app that we built, and the comment was like, "Wow, like could you share with us the prompt that you used to create the app?" And the truth was, it's like, well, it's not so much about a prompt that I created; it's about this document that I built, right? And this document is super specific, and AI built this document, and the document is the basis for the app, right? So like my coding agent wasn't responding to a prompt. Now I prompted my coding agent to read the doc, right? Like
Right.
it was just like, hey, read this doc. It describes an app I want to build. I want you to read it and I want you to build it. Like that is the prompt. Like sharing that with people is not useful because
No, that's not.
the special sauce was in that products requirement doc that we built that was 25 pages, super detailed. And in that, there was a prompt. I used a prompt to create that doc, and that
Right.
prompt was something like, "Hey, you're an expert coding, AI coding expert and I'm in a hackathon and I am like creating, here's the use case, and I need to create a product requirement document for my coding agent to go and build this thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So
So
it was
these are layers of techniques that you're describing right now, and I
right. So,
I think
and so like,
it
but at
it
the end
does
of the
go hand in
day,
hand.
like
You
I
are
don't
the
want to
human that
simplify
started it.
and be like, hey, it's all about how well I'm communicating with the it's not about how
Yes,
well I'm communicating in this case. It had nothing to do with how well I communicated. It is though about the context that I provided to the model and like so it understood what it was that
that's
I
that.
wanted.
That's that layer. That's
Yeah,
that human communication layer. So what you just said, the context I provided, that's where the human articulation is important. The rest is about techniques that we can get into, all these great
that's
techniques
true.
of getting better things, but you can't just say, I want to build an application, make me a PRD.
No,
Like, you have to tell them what is the application you're looking to have and what kind of features do you want from it. And
but
that, if
I
you're
would say
vague
that
about that, you're going to get a vague outcome.
the application was not a result of a clever prompt.
No, no,
The
that's not what I'm saying
application
either.
was the result of like a detailed product requirement document that I fed to my
Written by
work.
AI, though. You didn't sit and write a 25-page paper,
No, right.
right?
I guided it. Um,
By being articulate and
sure,
clearly minded. That's the layers that I'm trying to describe. It
but
all starts with a human.
we can debate this. It
Well,
does,
it's not
and
going to just make something by itself. It's the human that initiates the thing.
right, but it's like if you were to if you were to try to prompt into existence the application that we built, you would fail. You
That's
would
not what
not.
I'm saying. I'm
What I
saying
am
that
saying is that
the
like
initial instructions to do the writing of the PRD and the
right,
prompt, that's the human layer. It might
and
just be
I'm
the
saying
first
that like that
domino.
the more context that I provide outside of that,
That's the
so
human layer I'm referring to.
no, and that's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about things like MCP servers that provide context into the syntax for the code that
Oh,
we are
okay.
using, right? Like the more context that I provide, the more tools that I provide my coding agent, like the worse I can be with the prompt, right?
I'm
Like
not saying that you should write a prompt at all, but you even
and
knowing that there's an MCP server to point it to is what I'm saying is part of articulation. Because if you just assume it's going to know which MCP server to find, then you're
yeah,
being
I'm
vague.
just saying that like there's context, and that's like a very large circle, and there's prompting, and that is like in that like there that is just a small part of that big circle of providing
Correct.
context, and
Yes.
you're going to provide context in lots of different ways to a model, and typing into a chatbot is like prompting, right? Where you're like literally
Yeah.
prompting the model. That is one way to provide context, and being articulate and understanding like how to do that well is helpful, but it's like less helpful the more context you're providing that model through other sources, right? So like I don't need to be like if I provided no context, I would have to be super specific in my prompting. But if I'm providing a PRD and providing MCPs that are providing information about the tools that I'm using and all those things, I can be so much less descriptive in my prompt because it has context, right? So like I don't want to like go too far down the rabbit hole of like it's all about prompting. It is all about prompting when prompting is the only context you're providing your model, and it's less about prompting when you're providing other sources of context where you don't need to articulate it in the prompt.
I guess
So
my
like
use of the word articulation may not be as articulate as I'm trying to be because I am trying to blow it out to the context level and the human layer. The human layer is the ultimate decider, and the more clear you are about what it is that you're trying to do, you in your head say, I need to give it this MCP, I need to give it these docs. These are all contexts But if you're not organizing yourself, you might be missing some of the context that you could be benefiting from having given to the.
Yeah, I think that like when it comes to prompting or like interacting, let's just call it interacting with a model.
Mhm, mhm.
Most people are interacting with a model through a chat interface.
And that's where we are right now at this episode and
And I think
the
that
mission of this
and I think
podcast.
that like when you're interacting with and the only context that you are providing to a model is through a chat interface, then prompting is how you provide context to a model and super important, right? Articulating yourself is super important when the only way that you're providing context to a model is through chatting.
Right.
But chatting and chatbots are not AI. Like that's not all
Right.
what AI is.
And it's not
AI
the
is
whole story.
so much
Yeah.
bigger than that.
It's not the whole story. Right.
It's not the whole story. So like when it comes to interacting with AI through a chatbot, yes, prompting is super important and like articulating self is wicked important. When you're using AI as a tool outside of a chatbot, prompting and articulation becomes less important than providing context through other means and
Right.
tools.
Right.
And that's
So
where I often am just like prompting super important when you're using a chatbot. But like as you become more advanced in your usage of AI, like the chatbot becomes like just one
a
of
piece of the
many
mosaic.
ways to
Right.
interact with AI
And to provide a context.
to
So
provide content.
let's try to actually wind that up right here because I'm hoping that this podcast is going to get out to the first layer, right?
Right.
Um, like you are, to folks who are just chatting with it right now. So the if we can help people get better outcomes at the level that they're experiencing right now, I'm hoping that we'll be able to actually put them on a path to discover everything that you're talking about as we talk about it in
Yeah, it's
future
almost just like
episodes.
just know that it's not limited to this, right? This isn't it,
Correct.
right?
Right.
Because you can go down a path thinking that this is it.
No,
Like
this is not it.
I'm
Right.
going to get good at this because I'm going to get great at prompting, right? And you would be going down like you will just get good at using a chatbot. And
Yes.
that is not like AI in its entirety. And it's probably not going to change your life if you just get good at like interacting with the chatbot. Like it'll be cool and you'll be able to, and you'll discover things. But likely what will happen is that you'll discover this giant world of AI that you can take advantage of.
Correct.
And
This is the way in, though. I
it
think it's
won't
the front
be
door.
through like that. So
I think
like,
it's the front door, though. I think the chat obviously is the front door into this. Understanding that if you're getting bad outcomes, it's not because the tool is bad. It's because you need to figure out
prompt
what
is,
am I and how am I asking
there was a
questions. Yeah,
mantra.
you prompt this shit.
Yeah. That like we used to tell people like, oh, that model sucks. No, it's like, no, you're prompt as shit.
Right, and that's the real bottom line of like just this
Right.
front door. We're at the threshold of the front door, and that's the best way actually to understand what the model is going to do is to talk to it a lot. And then these things will start unfolding in front of your eyes that
Right.
like, well, the concept of context will expand through these early days.
Yeah.
So
I think
let's
that
try to kind of wrap it up
we'll wrap
and
it up.
just try to finish it up with, it's not a magic box. It responds to your input. And the power comes in the beginning, at least, from asking good questions. And everyone can sit and just think for themselves, well, what does a good question mean? I don't there's no single answer to that. Depends on what you're doing, depends on who you are and the rest of it. But that's a personal kind of journey. How do I ask a better question for this particular thing that I'm trying to do?
You know what
And
would
I
be
think
good?
if we could leave it kind of there, but
If
go ahead.
anybody that's watching that's like maybe interested in watching another episode, right? Like we can dive into a use case or a problem to be like, hey, this is something that I wish AI could take care of for me. And we
Yeah,
could break it down and to be like, hey, level one, level two, and level three. Like this is
absolutely.
basic. Here's like a little intermediate. And like you want to get crazy, like let's build a web app and and publish it, or
That's the comments, right? So hopefully people are going to be watching this. Hopefully they're learning, but
let's get
also
practical.
asking questions.
Yeah, let's
Huh?
start showing it and using it. Like
Yeah.
I think that's like for me, that was the way
That's right.
I discovered all this stuff is just by kind of digging in and using it. So if we get a use case in the comments, we'll start showing
Or
it.
anything. Give us a use case. Ask us questions about things that we were just talking about. Ask us questions that you want us to talk about. Comments are going to be our lifeline to deliver the kind of topics and conversations that are going to be most useful. We talk on the phone all the time anyway. We want to be talking to you through this podcast. So, what do we say? Like, subscribe, and ring the bell kind of thing. Leave comments. Um,
And thanks
Anything
for
else you want
watching.
to wrap up? Thanks for watching. This is the AI Relay with Jonathan Spanos,
Signing
and
off.
that's Andrew Signore. And we'll be back soon with more thoughts on AI and how you can fold it into your life.
Right on.
Have a great day.
Take it easy.